Be bold. Be heard. Welcome to Unmute Your Mic with your host, Jessica Bell. The views, information, or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Unmute Your Mic.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. My name is Jessica Bell. I am your host from Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm so excited to get to know Tereza. She is who we are talking to today. I can't wait to hear her story and just find out a little bit more about her. Tereza, I am so excited to have you on my platform today. I just want to say thank you for agreeing to talk to a stranger.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Of course. If you could just tell us a little bit about you, we can get this thing started.
Sure. My name is Tereza Allen, and I live in Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. I'm a teacher's assistant and an artist.
And so how did you get into art?
I've been an artist it's funny because I feel like I've just started calling myself that after 50 some odd years on this planet. But I think I've been creating ever since I can remember, really. And I just basically started getting really serious about it about 9 years ago now. Yeah.
And so what kind of art do you do? Like, because I know there's different types of art. I'm not very well educated on art altogether, but I do know there are different types of art. So what kind of art do you do?
I've done everything from sculpture to writing to photography. I used to work a lot with acrylic paints, and now I'm into oil painting. I mostly do portraitures. That's my thing. I love people's faces. I love noses and eyes and ears.
That's awesome. And art is something I wish I was blessed to do. Like, I just don't even know how to do art.
Everybody has a little artist inside them. Everybody does.
I could probably find one or two things I might be decent at drawing, but I don't think I ever took enough time. So yeah. If you could just tell us a little bit about you, you personally, why you like to create. I tend to find that a lot of artists have very interesting reasons as to why they started to do art.
Yeah, it's interesting. There was always just this desire to create something, to make something, whether it was beautiful or not even. But it did take me a while. I remember when I was a lot younger, I didn't have the focus that it took. And I would get really, really frustrated and just be like, okay, no, I can't do this. And then I wouldn't do it for a really, really long time. And it wasn't up until a few years ago when I hurt my back really badly that I found that I still had that focus where I could sit for hours upon hours just drawing. And it's just always been, I don't know, it's just in me to do this, I guess. It's hard to explain.
Yeah, do you think it's kind of is it one of the things that you're passionate about?
Oh, absolutely. I'm very passionate, even more so now. It's getting it's kind of, 2 years ago, I suffered a brain injury. I had an accident. I fell off my bicycle, hit my head on the road. And so it was pretty serious. I was out of it for over a year. It took over a year for me to get better. And art actually helped me. I couldn't do it for a really long time while I was recovering. But there was a time where I slowly kind of got better and back into it. And I found it to be therapeutic in a way. I think it worked my brain to help heal it. There's so many great things about using your brain that way.
I love that. And I think that's so true. Like you said, the different things that we can use, when we have gone through something that it awakes different things inside of us. Yeah. I was actually talking to someone the other day and we were talking about, the whole lockdown and the quarantine period, and how a lot of people found like their creative thing in that moment because everything else was silenced, and you were able to kind of say like, hey, what is it that I want to do or I'm good at or feel passionate about? So I
Yeah.
love that you said that,
Yeah.
because I think it's cool when we're passionate about things and we kind of leave them and then come back to them, because then
Yeah.
you know there's like a true like draw or calling to that thing. Was
Yes.
art something you did like as a child?
Yeah, I did do like I remember being a kid and always trying to copy stuff. That was my thing. And it's funny enough, that's what I do now because my process is working off of photographs.
Mm,
So I will take a photo. I did a whole series a few years ago. I called it The Bedroom. And I had taken photographs of this woman that I know in her bedroom. And she had all of these fabulous old vintage outfits. She put them on, and I took all these great photos of her. And then I did several paintings of those photos. So I like to work off of photographs, which is
yeah.
fun for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I just love that kind of creativity because I feel like that's something I would never think of. So I always
Yeah,
think it's so interesting. I love to just know how people's brains think, like people who are super creative in that sense. And so
yeah,
you also said that you're a teacher or a teacher's assistant, right?
yeah,
So how
yeah.
did you get into that?
Actually, I've only been a teacher's assistant for the last 2 years. I've always been an early childhood educator. My entire life, I ran my own daycare center, you name it. I've dealt with all ages, and I just felt like I got to a place where I couldn't be around 23 and unders, and I needed to get into like a classroom where there were older kids. And I work with a kindergarten classroom right now in a private school, and we
Okay.
only at the moment have 5 kids, 6 kids in
Oh,
our classroom. Yeah, so it's
wow.
like it's a dream job, right?
Right. And kindergarten is a fun age because they're a little older. There's no potty training.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
that's
Yeah.
the fun age. But you said you've been working with youth, for basically majority of your life. Do you know what was it that specifically called you to that profession?
It's weird because I didn't know what I wanted to do when I was a kid. When I was younger, I had no idea. And I remember being put in a placement for like a social studies class. We had to go to a job place environment to figure out what we wanted to do. And I picked a daycare, oddly enough. I picked a daycare, and it was really weird because I can look back now at journals that I wrote for that. And I was like, I never want to work in a daycare. Which is so bizarre because that's exactly what I ended up doing my entire life pretty much is with
Yeah.
the littles. I like to call them the littles.
Yeah. And so you said you say you had your own daycare?
I did, yeah. I used to live on a very small island, a Gulf island here in British Columbia called Hornby Island. I lived there for 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and then I moved here in 2012. So yeah, I
That's
ran
awesome.
my own in-home daycare.
That is awesome because I mean, both of the things that you do, working with children and art, require a ton of patience. Like,
Yeah, tell me about it.
like more patience than a lot of the people have. So I think
Yeah,
that's so awesome. And
yeah,
I think anybody who works with children, like they have to just have a certain type of heart because it
yeah,
really does have to be something that you're passionate about because it
absolutely.
can get, like we were talking about earlier, very tiring very
Yeah,
quickly. Um,
exhausting.
yes.
Because I give so much of myself in that job. So yeah, I can't not give 110%. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the way it's got to be. And I find though that's the other thing about working with kids is that they inspire me. I look
They
at
do.
some of the stuff that my kindergarten kids are doing artistically, and I can't even. I'm astounded half the time. Like I I have to contain myself from freaking out so much.
Yeah, that is true. And like you said, I find, because I work with young youth too, and so I do find that a lot of times they're what keeps me going. Like,
Absolutely.
and you have to give everything when you work with kids. Like, it doesn't matter what's going on in the outside world, it doesn't matter what's going on in your personal life. Like, when you're working with them, you have to truly leave all of that behind because they
Yeah.
deserve the best version of you. Uh,
Absolutely. There are future. So why would you not, like, how can you not?
yeah. Yeah. I mean, exactly. And it's just, it's not fair to them when we don't
No.
bring our best, right?
Yeah,
And so
absolutely.
I wanted to ask you, just digging a little bit more into your story. So you do art and you work with children. Well, what
Yeah.
are some of the moments that maybe you've had in your life that that you kind of struggled through, or what are some of the things that you've had to overcome?
Um, my brain injury was one of them. That was pretty big. And then just the way my life turned upside down almost 10 years ago now. I was with, you know, a husband, and that all ended. So that was a pretty big bump in the road, basically. Yeah, I would say that those are the two biggest. The brain injury was pretty heavy. I would say that was the biggest bump in my road for sure.
And so, how did you find yourself, going through something like that and not giving up or throwing in the towel or saying, I just forget all of this? What made you continue to push forward and keep going?
I was very lucky in that I had a lot of friends to help me through. I had a lot of friends that kind of went through a similar situation that had brain injuries as well. So I did have a lot of support. Um, that mostly got me through it because there were times where it was very dark, very 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 dark, and I didn't know, like, I was at a point where I didn't know if I was ever going to get better. So I just had to just keep pushing every day. It was going to be, I would either have a good day or a bad day. It was time, and I had to keep telling myself, time will heal. But it's definitely that was the hardest lesson I've ever learned. And talk about patience.
I
Talk
was
about
just going to
patience.
say that's
Oh,
so interesting because even with you going through that, like that really made you again test your patience. And so,
yeah.
one of those qualities that you have that you're
Mm,
gifted with, or something that you needed when you went through a struggle or you were going through something, because you
yeah.
had to really be patient. And I can only imagine how hard that would be, especially when it's something to do with healing specifically. You're not waiting for like money or waiting for a job, but you're really waiting for, you know to feel like yourself again, in a
Yeah.
sense. And
Yeah.
so that has to be difficult.
It was incredibly difficult. Incredibly difficult. I feel every day. It's funny because every day now, almost I still ride my bicycle to work. um, but still, it's like every day I am so thankful that I am back to where I was before. Like, I keep saying I'm 99% better because there's always that 1%. There's always that, day where I'm not all better, like all better. So, but
Yeah,
yeah,
and I mean, I think that's great too. Like when we get to a place where we're just thankful. Sometimes we don't appreciate the little things that we have
yeah,
until we go through something that takes it away.
yeah,
And then we're like, wow, I really miss doing, this thing that was just so basic.
yeah,
But it's not basic if you're, going through healing or something has happened.
yeah,
So I can understand that for sure. And
yeah,
then you also mentioned that you went through a divorce. Is that what it was? Or a
yep,
separation?
yep,
So what was the healing process with that? Like, I've actually gone through a divorce as well. And so
yeah,
I just love to see people who are on the other side and they're
mm-hmm,
thriving and they're living, because so
yeah,
often when we're in it, it can feel so dark and like our whole world is just shattered. So what were
yeah.
some of the things that you did to kind of heal and push through that? If you are just now tuning in to this episode of UnMUTE Your Mic, my name is Jessica Bell. I'm your host from Kansas City, Missouri, and I'm currently talking to Tereza Allen. She is an artist, a early childhood education teacher, and I'm just so excited for you all to continue listening and hear her amazing story.
Well, luckily I moved. that was the big one.
Me too.
Yay! And just I got lucky. I found some amazing people. Old friends, new friends came back into my life. I feel like for so many years I kind of isolated myself from everybody else, especially living on a tiny island. It's easy to do. And yeah, just having the support from friends made a world of difference. And I remember when I first moved here, I was so socially awkward. It was bizarre. my very first job interview, I thought there's no way in hell I'm getting this job because I was just, oh my gosh. I ended up getting the job, oddly enough. But yeah, you just kind of got to push through. And I found like art again. So that's always been my go-to is painting, I think.
Yeah, kind of
Painting
like
and
your
drawing.
go-to thing to help you get through whatever it is. And
Absolutely.
I noticed in both of the things that you talked about, both your injury and going through the divorce, that you talked about having the right people around you to kind of help you through what you went through. And I think that's so important. Like I feel like sometimes that's so underestimated. Like it's like people don't talk enough about how important it is to have the right people around us. How important was that for you?
Oh, hugely important. And then having a job too that involved being with children again, because I took 4 years off of working with children. So I was a little bit nervous to work with them again. I'm like, do I have this in me? But then once I was in it again, I was just like, yeah, this is where I need to be. Having my friends, my job, all of those things, my art. It you I feel so lucky to have that in my life.
And I feel like children are healing. Like
Huge.
children are healing. Whenever we operate in our passions, I feel like it just like heals something inside of us. Like it just gives us
Absolutely.
that like cozy feeling of like I'm doing something with purpose,
Yes.
on purpose and with purpose. And I feel like that's super important. So what does your story look like? If you could write your story for the next 5 years, what does it look like for you?
Next 5 years, I want to continue being a teacher's assistant for sure because I really, really do love it. And then I just got to keep practicing. I want to get better at what I do because there's so much for me to learn. It's insane how much there is to learn with what I do. So I just want to keep doing that and yeah, just get myself out there as much as I can for sure.
Yeah. And so with your painting and with your art, do you do like galleries and that kind of thing, or how does it work?
I have done a little bit, not very much. I've done, yeah, it's really hard in Victoria to get your art out there. And I'm also still kind of trying to build that confidence to think that my work is good enough to be in a gallery. So I'm still working on that because I really have truly have only been painting it in oils for 4 years. So I'm building that confidence as we speak to get my work out there. Right now, I'm mostly just on social media, and I've sold work through that, which has been really good. Yeah, and commissions. I've been doing a lot of commission work lately, which has been a really great practice for me.
And so how do you do that? How do you work through the confidence and building the confidence, especially when you know it's something that you love to do, how is it that you are slowly building that confidence? Because I think that's really important. Just because we enjoy doing something doesn't mean we automatically have the confidence of like, oh, yes, I'm ready. Let's go do this. So, what are some of the things you're doing that kind of help build that?
I think obvious to keep practicing is number one. I just practice, and then I'm lucky enough to have people, like, once again, it's people in my life to help push me to be like, okay, you can do this. It's like doing this interview with you today. I was like, I don't know if I can talk about myself, and everybody was like, Nick, just do it. You're gonna be fine. So
Yeah.
it's kind of that, having that support network helps push you through that insecure
Yeah.
time of, am I good enough? I won about 4 years ago, I think now, I went to France for a month and stayed in a studio. It was insane. For a whole month I was in France,
Wow.
in the north of France. And but the challenge for me there was I had just really kind of started drawing portraits, and I was surrounded by all of these other artists, and they were, in my mind, true artists. They made
Mm.
their living through art, and I was just this, like, you know, beginner
Yeah.
thing that just drew copied photos. So I battled a lot with myself there, thinking, am I good enough? Why am I here? But that experience pushed me to where I am now. I was so lucky to have that experience.
Yeah. And that, I think that is so great because, like you said, one, having the people to where I think it's so important to have people who see things in you that you don't always see in yourself. Like, it's
Yeah,
really good to just be surrounded by people who are like, no, you can do this. Because
yeah,
sometimes we can be our own worst critic. Like, we look at our, and someone else is looking at it like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. And we're like, all we see are the flaws or how we could be better. So I think it's so
yeah,
important when we do have somebody in our corner, or hopefully multiple people who are in our
yeah,
corner who
yeah,
really fight for us to be the best version of ourselves. So
yeah,
I think that's so, like you said, we're so lucky to have that because not everybody
absolutely.
does.
Yeah,
Not
yeah,
everybody
you're
does.
so right. Yeah, I that's why I just feel I'm so grateful for where I am today and who I have in my life, because if I didn't have those people, who knows where I would be, right? Like,
Yeah.
they're
And
my
it can get
support.
very dark and lonely when you're just stuck with you and the
Yep.
thoughts inside of your head. That can be a very difficult
Very
place
difficult.
to be. We're not always nice to ourselves.
No, no, we're our own worst critics,
We
for sure.
definitely are. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so, and I love how you said that just about using that experience of you going to travel to kind of help build yourself up. I think it's
yeah,
important. Sometimes we have to just like boomerang ourselves into certain situations. Like,
yeah.
just go all in, throw everything in, and just see what happens. Because really, what is the worst that can happen? You
I
know?
know, exactly, right? What can happen? Really, I mean, it doesn't. We're so lucky. I'm just so lucky.
And I think, and I love that too, because hearing your story, hearing some of the things that you have gone through, and then to have a conversation with you and to see that you're full of life and just love, and you're grateful and you're thankful, that is something that a lot of us could really learn from, because so
Absolutely.
often people go through things and we're not always able to pick ourselves up and
Yeah,
keep going. And when you talk about the things, it's like you're talking about them and you know that they happened, but you're not
hmm,
really dwelling on them as like
hmm,
a, like, oh, I'm so sad. It's just kind of
hmm.
like I made it through. And I want to
Yeah.
let you know that that is so inspirational,
Oh,
because
good.
oftentimes people see our stories and they just see us, right? You know,
Yeah.
they just see, oh, like, oh, she's beautiful, or she has all this creativity and she can work with kids, but they don't see what it took us to get
Get
to
here.
where
Yeah.
we are. Yeah. And so I just want you to just remember that, and to just know that, like, hey, people are watching you,
Yeah.
even if they don't ever say that they are. And
Yeah.
so I want you to just take a couple of minutes to encourage the person who is listening.
Yeah.
Encourage them if they've gone through something. Maybe it was a divorce, maybe it was health issues, and maybe they just need to be encouraged to keep going. If you could just talk to that person who is listening, I would really appreciate it.
Oh, okay. Um, just all I can say is just give it your best every single day. Be grateful for what you do have, and just hang in there. Things do get better. Time time is your friend. Time is
No,
your friend.
that's good. And so often we just say like hang in there like it's small, but that sometimes those words are
Yeah.
really all somebody needs
Yeah.
to keep going. And
Yeah.
especially and they need to hear it from somebody who's gone through something.
Yeah. Yeah.
When we're going through things and someone says, "Oh, you'll be fine." And you're
Yeah.
like, that's easy to say when you haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
But
One of my good friends always comes in my mind. He always says poco a poco, little by little. So
that's
little
good.
by little you can get through whatever it is that you're getting through.
I love that. That is good. And so, Teresa, where can people find you? Social media,
Social
website.
media, I have a website. It's teresaallenartbrut.com, and my website is Teresa Allen Art with a Z.
Okay, got
Yeah.
you. And then anyone who's listening, I'm going to put all of her information down below and in our show notes. So you can contact her, reach out to her, be inspired by her like I was inspired today. Teresa, I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your
Oh,
story because it's not easy.
I
And you've
know.
gone through some things, but I'm so excited to see where the rest of your story goes and just how it keeps being written. To me,
Yeah.
that's the most exciting thing is that we're talking about your story, but your story isn't over.
Yes.
It is really, truly just started because we have multiple chapters in our lives and in our stories. And so I'm excited to see where yours is going.
Me too.
I want to thank everybody for listening to another episode of Unmute Your Mic. I want to thank Teresa again for sharing her story. Please stay connected with her. Stay connected with Unmute Your Mic. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can find us anywhere that you see a podcast. And I thank you again, Teresa. It has been a true honor to have you on my platform.
Yay. Thank you for having me, Jessica. That was so much fun.
Thank you. Well,
Right
thank
on.
you, everyone, for tuning into another episode of Unmute Your Mic. Don't forget to be bold, be heard, and unmute your mic. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to Unmute Your Mic. Be sure to tune in next time when Jessica takes her mic off mute as she continues her journey to find stories that inspire and uplift our communities.